Within the traditional territory of the Tikamakshing Anishinaabeg and Wanapitei First Nation lies Sudbury Basin mining area. Almost a century and a half of mining and logging in the area has led to detrimental implications for the environment. This has had major impacts on the terrestrial ecosystems in the area. Mitig, trees in English, are central aspects to that ecosystem. Thus, they are vital in the discussion surrounding mining. Many harmful particulates are released into the atmosphere as metals are extracted from ore through smelting. These effects from smelting are felt 100 kilometers away. Menan, the traditional territory of the Temiagama Anishinaabe, is located 80 kilometers northeast of the Copper Cliff smelter and as close as 60 kilometers from the Falcon Bridge operations. The prevailing wind directions in the Sudbury Basin is northeast, the direction of Temagami, which is the traditional territory of my indigenous community, Temiagama Anishinaabe. This is a letter written to my grandmother, Verla, while she was at the Queen Mary Hospital for Children with Tuberculosis in Toronto. This letter was written by the Bear Island Hudson Bay Post Factor's wife, Mrs. Bates, and was dated March 15, 1949. It reads, "Sudbury is not a bit a pretty place. All the trees and grass are killed for miles around by the smoke from the smelter of the nickel mines. Do you remember the big jars of liquid Herb Price uses up at the forestry to test the smoke on Bear Island? That is smoke from Sudbury he is testing to make sure it doesn't damage our trees." According to a 1975 report from Environment Canada, the Sudbury area probably represents Canada's greatest single source of sulfur dioxide. From 1940 to 1945, Sudbury smelting operations were responsible for the annual release of 2.76 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. The 2.6 million tons emitted in Sudbury in 1969 were equivalent to approximately 9% of the total United States emissions. Thousands of tons of iron, nickel, and copper are released annually into the atmosphere. The Copper Cliff Superstack was commissioned in 1972. Despite the erection of the Superstack in 1972 and regreening efforts in the 1970s, it was not until 2005, 30 years later, that the government made aggressive legislation to regulate air toxins in Ontario. In accordance with environmental regulations, Vale in 2011 implemented a plan to reduce atmospheric emissions dramatically. Since the railroad reached Temagami in 1906, there has been an influx in tourism, logging, and mining industries. Temagami continues to be a major destination for cottagers and paddlers, concerning themselves with conservation efforts that privilege the ecological and aesthetic value of the area. The pollution and desecration of Menan has left a legacy that pollutes not only the land but our culture and ways of life. The biocultural framework describes the relationship between the environment and culture, how they shape each other. Often people regard Temagami as the canoeer's paradise and describe Menan as a pristine wilderness. However, for generations prior to the arrival of tourism in the area, Temiagama Anishinaabe have relied on these lands for existence. As we continue to protect our cultures and beliefs, we persist in the resistance against continued threats from mining companies. The paradoxical relationship between industry and the environment materializes itself within daily life experiences on the land. In 2006, I was part of a land-based learning initiative for Temiagama youth located at Temagami First Nation. This program was focused on the building of a traditional 20-foot Wigwash Jumon Temagami freight canoe. Most of the material was harvested from Menan. While scouting and harvesting birch bark, cedar, and spruce roots, I was able to receive teachings from the elder overseeing this project. She taught us about her direct observations on the impacts of trees, specifically the stunting of wigwas, which is white birch, the specific birch required for the construction of a wigwas jimon. She described how now most wigwas is not large enough and its bark is too thin. This is a direct example of the effects of mining industry pollution on the livelihoods of Temeyagama and Nishnabek. Ni Kanagana, all my relations. As Temeyagama and Anishinaabe Kwe, our bodies are of the land. When mining pollutes the land, it pollutes our bodies and culture. The land is our mother. Our ways of knowing are within her. Our survival as a people is dependent upon her. We continue to fight for the protection of Ndokumanon.